Handicaps are very important to golfers. When people first meet each other and discover they both play golf, the most common question that follows is about what their handicap is. But while talking about your handicap number is all very well, the most important thing is whether you can back up the talk on the golf course and actually play to it. And that's where things get a bit more interesting. Your golf handicap is supposed to be based in a complex calculation of your scores over an extended period of time, which shows to the golfing playing world exactly how good you are. So why does it feel sometimes like you could count on one hand the number of times you actually play to your handicap during the course of a season? In this video, therefore, we take a look at how often you should actually be playing to your handicap across different game formats, what a good, bad and average handicap is across the world, but also, and probably most importantly, what the actual odds are of your next opponent shooting better than their handicap by anything between 1 and 10 strokes. A golfer's handicap is the numerical value that measures a golfer's potential, offering a scoring method that allows players of various skill levels to compete against each other. The USGA and R&A, golf's governing bodies, now set the standard for a golfer's handicap as an average of their best 8 rounds of golf out of the last 20. And that is why a player's handicap is about potential. It reflects their best days in the course rather than, for example, simply an average of his or her recent scores. The most recent 12 worst rounds, when things were not going so well or entirely going haywire, are entirely discarded from the handicap calculation. But that also helps explain why the USGA's handicap research team says that not only will golfers only play to their handicap or better 1 out of every 4 rounds, but they will also on average score 3 strokes higher than their course handicap. That statistic, however, still does not tell the whole story when it comes to considering the question as to how often you should play to your handicap. Golfers, as we know, are all different. Better players are far more consistent than higher handicappers, and the format of game golfers play will also vary during the course of a regular season. A lot of the time when you are playing a round which will count for your handicap, it will be a standard stroke play event, but Stableford and par bogey competitions will also likely be part of the schedule the average golfer competes in. So golfers frequently wonder how often players of a similar standard to them really do shoot their handicap, or how often they shoot their handicap when playing different types of competition. To help answer this, HowDidIDo.com, the largest golfing network anywhere in the world, has crunched the numbers of over 7.5 million scores posted in competitions and found the following. In stroke play competitions, 26% of golfers played to their handicap, but in Stableford events that number rose to 31% and to just over 44% in par bogey competitions. So we can immediately see that the base 25% number that the USGA handicap research team analyse is affected by the format of competition they are playing. And when we look at How Did I Do's data broken down by handicap groups, we can also see that the overall 25% baseline again varies by the standard of golfer. So, better players will play to their handicap more often is the simple conclusion. Which makes perfect sense, and a bit obvious of course in a way, but it is also good to know that it clearly also confirms the handicap system works. Low handicap players are more consistent, and so inevitably make less mistakes and shoot better scores, which will then be reflected in their lower handicap. However, there are also far fewer of them in number, so the overall baseline is a lot less than their numbers above the 30% mark. Saying that, it still means that even the best amateur players are not shooting their handicap close to 2/3 of the time. So the next time you are playing one in an event, remember that your competitors' handicaps only reflect their potential, and they are highly likely not to play to it on the day. The only problem with that, however, is that the odds of you having an off day as well, and not playing to your potential, are not that good either. When it comes to having a handicap in golf, what is really the point? After all, the majority of golfers don't have an official handicap. Of the 24.2 million golfers in the USA, in other words, adults who played at least one regulation round in the past year, less than 20% have an official handicap. USGA studies, however, show golfers with handicaps make better connections inside the golf community and play more rounds. And part of the reason for this is inevitably the competition that handicaps allow between friends and players of all standards. There can be nothing quite like the thrill of beating your buddies, or the best player in the club who you could not even contemplate playing without the benefit of strokes, based on the difference between your two handicaps. But if there's one thing golfers are united in, it is their dislike of the miracle round and competitions round by, and I apologise now for mentioning the word, sandbaggers. Play golf long enough and you'll come up against golfers playing off a high handicap who magically seem to play the best golf they've ever played on competition day to walk away with all the prizes. In other words, they look like they are way better than they claim they are, and you're deeply suspicious that they have a false, or being more generous, a misleading handicap index. Thankfully, again due to the great work of the USGA handicap research team, we now have the backup we need thanks to the exceptional tournament score probability table. This table highlights the odds of any golfer hitting their handicap or shooting up to 10 strokes better than it. So the next time you're at an event and you have your sandbagging suspicions, you can use this table to work out what the exact odds of that player shooting that round were. For example, the odds of a golfer with a course handicap of 14 beating their handicap by 8 strokes is 1,138 to 1. Looking at it another way, and assuming the average golfer plays 20 rounds per year, it would take them over 56 years of golf to do it once. That is all not to say it is not possible for players to have a great round, and these rounds should of course absolutely be celebrated. It's just a helpful guide to show the likelihood of it happening often, and if it does, we would suggest that a player's handicap index needs looked at. The good news with the new World Handicap system, however, is to safeguard against any dubious scoring practices by players. It caps the maximum score on any hole to a new double bogey as a universal standard. This works in the same way as the equitable stroke control did in the old USGA system, which capped max strokes based on handicap. For example, 10 to 19 handicap could take no more than a 7 on any hole, 20 to 29 could take no more than an 8, etc. But by adopting net double bogey as a universal standard, provides consistency throughout the world in its application. So there should be no more examples now of golfers having a deliberate bad hole to make sure their handicap stays high for future competitions. Golfers are typically pretty obsessed with how their handicap measures up against everyone else, and so questions about what is a good or bad or average handicap are very common. So a while back we did some research to find out what the average handicap for golfers in different parts of the world is, and here's what we found out. So if you have a 12 handicap as a male golfer, for example, the average handicap in different parts of the world would indicate that it is a good handicap, as it is at least a couple of strokes better than the average handicap in the US, the UK and Australia. A 12 handicap for a female golfer by comparison would be excellent, given the much higher average handicap numbers. Given also that it is estimated more than 80% of golfers don't have a handicap, the averages which are reported in different countries are very likely to be artificially low. So however your handicap stacks up against the average, due to the fact that the majority of players who play golf don't have a handicap, and therefore tend to shoot higher scores, it is likely that your handicap is better than it appears when compared to the rest. The general similarity of the average handicap for both men and women in these countries also suggests that golfers across the world play on average to a very similar standard. But these average comparisons were taken during a period before the World Handicap system had fully taken effect, and although they were similar, different handicap systems around the world operated according to their own guidelines. With the World Handicap system now in force, however, you should now be able to compare your handicap with players from pretty much anywhere, with confidence that you'll finally know how your handicap stacks up against the rest of the world. We hope you liked this video and found it helpful. Please check out our other great videos in Golf in Focus, and most importantly as always, enjoy your golf.